Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Welcome, welcome, man. Unk and Few, episode 15. We're in the holiday spirit, man. We're getting jingly. I brought the elf hat again, man. I
I
brought the
see
elf
you.
hat around too.
I see you're all jingled up.
Yes, sir. Jingle all the way, and we're gonna jingle our way into some football, man. I was thinking about getting the Santa hat, but by the time I was gonna get the Santa hat, I was like, bruh, I'm gonna be late for the pod, and I can't do that to my peoples. I can't do that to you, Unc. I can't do that to us.
Yeah.
You know
Because
what I mean?
Pittsburgh's coming on at 4:30, kid. So
We're on a time limit. We're on time crunch, bruh. Unc has some
right,
beers to drink, and we got some football to watch, both of us, as we prep. But we got to talk about
tailgating,
that. Hey,
tailgating is
yeah,
tailgating is underway. Yeah.
I like it. I like it. What you like to have on your tailgate, man? What's on your menu when you tailgate for the game? What's your menu?
Oh, dude,
What's your food
gro-
and drink menu, man?
Grolsch, and
Huh?
we'll figure. Yeah, Grolsch, and we'll figure out the rest of the menu later. I got some steak. I got some sauce and whatnot left over from yesterday. I doubt very much that I'm cooking anything huge today. So.
I
It'll
like it.
be
I like
what's there.
it. I like it. I rock with it. And at that point, man, I got to link up with you for us to do another in person. You know what I mean? Unc and nephew. You know what I mean? Unc football's been killing it. We want to say this before we get into the football topics. Okay? The holidays are about being thankful. The holidays are about, joy. And we want to remind y'all that we are thankful for each and every viewer. So you're slapping a like
Yes,
on this
I.
video, commenting on this video, every single person viewing this video on the replay or live. We appreciate y'all. We give you season greeting, whether you know what I mean, celebrate Hanukkah, Christmas, or you don't celebrate at all. You know what I mean, this end of the year time is tough, difficult for people. So I want to reinforce that message before we get into the football topics. You feel me?
Feeling you, buddy. Feeling you. Yeah, man. One love to everybody out on the holidays, whether you're celebrating Kwanzaa, whether you're celebrating
Yes,
the
sir.
Christian Christmas or Hanukkah, right? Or anything else that might be going along at the time. The point is we love you all and we're really grateful and happy that y'all come in here every week. And yeah, we love to give it on out.
There we go, man. Let's talk about the one that's not getting that much love, and we're gonna run it off with the Cowboys. We're gonna start it off with the title topic, the ones that are not getting a lot of, joy and cheer. You know what I mean? Is the
Hmm.
Cowboys getting utterly spanked,
Hmm.
31-10, and we kind of talked a little bit about this. That
We
the
talked.
Dallas Cowboys. We talked about this last weekend. Uncle emphasized this, the weather. Dallas is history with Buffalo. Unc, what did you think of that whooping? 31 to
Well,
10.
yeah, I didn't expect it. I mean, remember, I was saying that the weather was probably not going to be a factor, and it really wasn't.
No,
Um,
not
what I
really.
s- what I did say is that it was a classic trap game for Dallas. Out of conference, on the road. They don't play Buffalo very often. In
No.
fact, and they're famous for killing them in Super Bowls. um, so yeah, so Dallas lived up to its rep of being a little soft sometimes on the road versus back home in Dallas. A rep that they had squashed a little bit when they beat Philly.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yes.
I did not expect Dallas to be that soft on the road. Which brings up the question is Buffalo that good? Right. Well, we did that points breakdown and all that type of stuff last week when we analyzed that game. And I
Mhm.
recognized all of Buffalo's strengths on defense and on offense and compared them against Dallas and said, you know what? Dallas is just better. Dallas should easily cover that 2 points, blah, blah, blah. Once again, I could not
Mhm.
have been more wrong. The bettors knew what they were talking about
Mhm.
because it was that trap game. So at this point, you have to ask
Mhm.
yourself, is it psychological with Dallas? Or is Buffalo
Yeah.
that good? And as usual, the truth lies somewhere in between. What
Mhm.
I would suggest to you is that A, Dallas doesn't travel that well on the road. B, Buffalo is a lot better than their record implies or infers,
Yes.
which is another topic we've addressed frequently on this show. The sheer frustration of being a Buffalo fan this year. with all the offensive output that they've shown and whatnot, and yet their
Yeah.
record is 8-6 right now, 2 games behind Miami in the division. And it really
Yes.
matters to them too, right? Like, because if they can win the division, they'd be like a 2 seed. If they don't win enough games over the next 3 games, they could end up out of the playoffs. Um,
Yes. It's
right.
tight.
So
They're on a tightrope.
yeah. Buffalo's really on a tightrope, and they're kind of playing like it right now.
Yes.
Whatever problems have bothered Buffalo this year, they seem to be over them. At the
Mm-hmm.
same
Mm-hmm.
time, James Cook is emerging
Crazy.
finally, right? Like
Yep.
fantasy
Yep.
fans
Yep.
everywhere are like,
Yep.
finally, right? And let's not skip that over that point too quickly. James Cook was the story of that game. He took
Yes.
over that game. And
Mm-hmm.
you look at the stat sheets. I was looking to see like some more numbers. Even though I watched that game, I didn't keep track of the stats and whatnot. I was just numb from the score. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Um,
Yeah,
and
we were
yet,
texting. We were texting during that game. We were texting. Yeah,
yeah,
we were texting.
neither
Mhm.
Dak nor Josh Allen put up sterling numbers in that game. It was all
No,
running. It was a run game, and so obviously,
yes, it was.
Dallas is soft against the run, and James Cook
Mhm.
is very good, and
See,
and so we found
crazy.
that out. And so, yeah, I think it's a mix of both, but I think that Buffalo is better than their record shows, and I think Dallas blows hot and cold, which is not good for a team on a championship run. Don't get me wrong, Dallas is very good, but we'll get into the point spreads, but I don't really see great things for Dallas this weekend in Miami either, right? I mean,
No, no, they're playing against a team that runs the football very well.
right? I was
Very well with Mostert. Mostert has 20 touchdowns.
okay
Mostert might rip that entire Dallas defense
because
apart.
we
I
saw what.
actually benched Dallas's defense this week. I put Cincy's defense in my fantasy. Just a heads up.
Yeah, that's probably a better play. Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Because clearly James Cook has made it known that you can run on Dallas. They're a bit
Oh yeah.
soft that way. And and here comes Miami, right? Miami, the other thing about Miami, quiet as it's kept, they've turned into a
Yeah.
very balanced team. And
Yes.
their defense is top tier. It's top five over the last 8 weeks, I think, something like that. Yeah,
Really?
yeah. Miami
Oh.
and and they defend against the pass, right? Right. If if for some reason Tony Pollard can't start getting, Tony Pollard has not been strong running, so
Oh.
assuming Dallas tries the run, they're probably going to get shut. And so when they open it up and start trying to pass for 300 yards, well, here comes Jalen Ramsey, right?
And
um,
Xavier Howard,
right.
who's a
If
great
he
corner in
plays,
his own right.
yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah. So yeah,
Yeah. I have a
Miami's
lot of buzz.
Miami's defense, quiet as it's kept, with all the offensive output that they're known for, with Tyreek Hill and Waddle and Tua and Mostert, and Achani. I mean, all these names dominate almost every conversation about Miami. Quiet as it's kept,
Absolutely.
they've got a defense that's like ready to receive Dallas. So yeah,
And on top of that, think about that. They shut out the Jets. They shut out the Jets last week.
yep.
It's the
Well,
Jets, but still.
shutting out the Jets is not not a big deal. I think offensively
No.
that's not a huge deal right now, but a shutout is always impressive. The bigger
Yeah.
surprise to me in that game is the
No
zero.
Tyreek
Like
Hill.
just
And
yeah,
zero.
no
No Tyreek
Tyreek
Hill.
Hill. Yeah, 30 points didn't
Yeah.
surprise me. The zero surprised me. That the Jets couldn't even get a field goal out of like, wow, that was
Yeah.
a defensive masterpiece by Miami. So look out, man. Miami's surging, but not on the offensive side. They're holding their own
No.
on the offensive side. They're surging on
Yeah.
defense. Yeah, man.
That's actually something I didn't know, Uncle. Talking about that Dallas, sorry, not that Dallas. My mistake. That
Miami
Miami
D.
defense, and I'm like, damn. Okay, can they make a run with that type of team, Uncle? What do you see in the future? Because like you said with, you know what I mean. Like you said about Buffalo. Buffalo has been the opposite of Dallas. Buffalo has lost a lot of close games. By the way, sorry if there's any background noise. I'm in a situation right now. Yeah, I mean, hopefully that doesn't disturb the rest of the peoples.
I don't
But
hear
like I was
anything.
saying, you don't hear anything. You hear me fine?
Yeah, I hear you fine. I don't hear any background noise.
Perfect, perfect. Because some people are laughing up a storm, and I'm trying to know what kind of jokes they're talking about. But anyways, back to the main point.
Okay. Now
Buffalo has actually, I'm good.
yeah, man, you're good.
Perfect, perfect. Like I was saying, man, Buffalo has gone the opposite way of Dallas, where Buffalo has lost close games. You know what I mean? And Dallas has won. Actually, Dallas has blown out bad teams. But Buffalo they can sneak in as a wild card and make some moves. Is what I'm trying to say here.
You don't
And
want to play. You don't want to play Buffalo right now.
you don't want to play Josh Allen. You don't want to play Cook. Well, he's cooking up. We have a lot of interesting. So it's a bit of both. That's what we're concluding. It's
Yeah.
a bit of both. And then we look on the other end of the NFC East, dog. We got to talk about, the Eagles. 3-game losing streak. Are we in a panic mode type of vibe? 3-game losing streak. And Jalen Hurts said some weird comments on the podium. How do you feel about the Eagles, bro? How do you feel about their losing streak? Second now in the NFC East. I think maybe they're pretty much a wild card, are they not? Or are they somewhere there? What do you think? How's it
Well,
looking, bro?
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
No, they would have to be a wild card. They're probably in the number 5 spot right now because
Yes.
Dallas has assumed the leader position in that conference. Yes, pardon me.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I always get thrown by Dallas being in the NFC East, even after all these
Yeah.
years.
It's a little
Yeah.
trippy.
So Dallas is number 1 right now. Philly's number 2.
Yes, sir.
Philly right now seems to be going through something that the 49ers went through earlier on in the year, this, sort of a bit of a slide, but it's absolutely the wrong time
Yeah.
of the year to be doing that. Um,
Terrible time.
yeah, I think Philly is just getting worn down. So those close wins that they were getting earlier are not necessarily showing up. Their defense can be you can like pass on Philly. Unfortunately, Philly is like one of the top. They're one of the top defenses, and I use that ironically. I'm flipping it around. They're one of the top defenses in fantasy to throw against, right? Meaning like
Yep.
they give up
Yep.
the most points, not that they defend the most, but that they give up the most points. So
Oh, snap.
yeah,
Okay.
a team with a championship aspiration should not have a weak spot like Philly has in their on their corners right now. They're still
Mm, mm,
stopping the
mm.
run reasonably well, but for the most part, I would say that Philly's got they need to tighten up the ship. They need to get
Yes.
back to the way they were playing earlier on in the season. But that's the reason they play a long season, right? Is to figure out which team survives, right? Like every team's
That's
going through the same thing Philly is, right? So yep,
and that
Philly's got
that
work.
makes me think. That makes me think, man. Jalen Hurts, surprisingly, because we were early on Jalen Hurts, you and me.
Hmm.
We were early on Jalen Hurts. Throws so many picks now. He's
Hmm.
causing a lot of turnovers, right? And on top of that, they're not using their run game properly. They are looking like a team with a lot of issues, and it doesn't help that they got rid of their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinators, during the
Yep.
offseason. And surprisingly, the Colts, I think it was the Eagles' offensive coordinator. The Colts are
Hmm.
looking like a good team, and the Colts are 8-5 right now. So you're looking at an Eagles team that's on a 3-game losing streak, right? And they know they got to face the Niners, who are surging right now. And now you have a situation where, bruh, can we believe in the Eagles? Can we not? It's a weird situation, brother. It's a weird, weird situation. Any more words about Philly, man? Do you think Philly even has a chance to make it far or do anything in the playoffs, man? I have my
They
doubts.
all do.
I don't know.
They all do. Right. I mean, come
Yeah,
on. I mean, Los Angeles won a championship just a
came in
couple
as
of
a
years
wild
ago
card.
in 2021 when if you polled anybody at the beginning of that football
Yeah,
tournament, nobody would have chose them, right? So we all know that hairy things happen in these playoffs. So outside of San Francisco, I don't think anybody's a lead pipe lock to go anywhere necessarily in the playoffs. But to address your question,
mm,
I think
mm,
Philly's good for at least one win in the playoffs. Um,
good.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and yeah, so yeah, because like who would assuming they don't go up against the Niners in the first round in their wild card game,
That's a good point.
I would say that Philly's good for at least one win. Yep.
Well said, man. And that's good that you trying to mention Philly and talking about losing streaks. We got to go on the other side, bruh. We got to talk about winning streaks. And when we're talking about winning streaks, man, we got to talk about the Bengals. The Bengals, bruh. What is going on, man? They put in this random new guy under center, bruh, and has me questioning Joe Burrow's legacy. This guy, Jake Browning, the year of the backup. I remember this year I had a full podcast, solo podcast, and I was talking about how many backups are playing football right now. I
Hmm.
counted on my finger at that point 8 backups playing ball in starting quarterback positions. Now I think the number must be 11. You know what I mean?
I
Jake
heard.
Brown, I believe, is the number one backup quarterback. I think he should be a starter. He is slinging
Yeah.
that thing against the Vikings. He went, 29 for 20 for 42, 324 yards, 2 touchdowns, and eviscerated them and talks his ish while doing it. How do you feel about the Bengals on a 3-game win streak and backup quarterbacks rising up in the
Well,
NFL?
I told you the AFC North was going to go down like this, right? It's the black
Yes,
and blue
sir. You
division.
did.
And
You did.
the thing I love about that division more than anything is, there isn't even one team that isn't at least 500 right now. So I mean, like that's a
Yes,
rugged
sir.
division. Now,
Mm-hmm.
as for Mr. Browning, right? This addresses a couple of different things we've talked about on this podcast numerous times. But Jake Browning is what it looks like when you have a quarterback on the bench for 2 or 3 years learning the system. You ask, is he a system quarterback? Yes, he's a system quarterback.
Is he a game
Burrow's a
manager?
system. Both of them are systems quarterback. Whatever the system
Yeah.
is in Cincinnati, yeah, they've done their homework, both quarterbacks, and they execute it well, right? So
Yes, sir.
yeah, when they're injury free and all that stuff, both quarterbacks have obviously good understanding of their the playbook. Like
Yes,
Jake
sir.
Browning shouldn't be the surprise that he is. Like it really shouldn't surprise anybody that someone who's had the
Mhm.
proper mentorship can step in there and and execute.
Great,
Yeah,
great point, man. Great point, my man. Because Zach Taylor, that coach for the Bengals, doesn't matter who's under center, as long as they know the system and they're passing that ball to
yeah.
goddamn Higgins making crazy plays. And you saw that crazy catch he did, and then he flipped around
Oh
to the
yeah,
touchdown.
yeah, yeah.
Man,
And that's the added bonus to competency and knowing the system and whatnot is that yeah, you impress the guys you're playing with, and they rally behind you really quickly, like yeah, it's okay, Burrow, we wish him all the best, get healthy, but bro, we got this in the meantime, don't even worry about it. um
just sit
and
back,
and
relax.
that's what's going on with Cincy, and that's why they're on a 3-game win streak right now. Yeah, because their defense is not prolific. It's Browning. Browning is executing.
He's not turning the ball over. He's making plays when he has to. Kind of reminds me, we won't stay on this too long because I'm kind of scared of this team. This kind of reminds me of how the Browns are looking under Joe Flacco. This black and blue division. Man, Joe Flacco came in there and he's played the best quarterback out of all the guys under center in Cleveland. And there's been borderline, there's been 4 guys. Deshaun, PJ Walker, DJT, and now Joe Flacco. They're on quarterback number 4. Don't matter. 8 and 5. What the hell? The system.
Yeah,
And when we talked about last week about Cam Newton saying game managers and game changers, does it matter, dog? Are you getting us wins? Are we getting W's? Are we getting L's? And if you
yeah.
are with the system and you're getting us some dubs, don't matter. Let's keep it rolling. I'm scared of the Cleveland Browns, man. How do you feel about the Cleveland Browns?
Well, Yeah, yeah. Well, the first thing you have to know about the Cleveland Browns is that there's been some regime change. They are now a pass first offense where they were a run first offense early in the year. So get that straight right away. Yeah, and of course, their defense is the same. Their defense is rocking it. But yeah, now with Joe Flacco, I mean, Joe Flacco is a veteran, and I guess he's got good offensive line protection, right? So they feel confident putting him out there. And I
Mm,
don't ignore a couple of interceptions he's thrown too, but Joe Flacco is a pass first guy, right? He's very comfortable
yes.
putting it up there. Look at how David Njoku is now pleasing
Joker
a lot of
plays.
fantasy owners. Yeah, like Njoku is finally looking like the tight end everyone thought he would be coming out of Miami, right? So
Mhm.
but that's because he's got a quarterback that can get him the ball finally, right? So that's the one thing Flacco does. He's got a great arm. He throws a nice ball. So as long as you've got the offensive line to protect him and you can, stomach the interceptions and sacks from time to time, he's got to, he's going to be good. And especially in this situation where all that's being asked of him is to, play 6 games and go through the playoffs, and I'm sure they've incentivized him accordingly and whatnot. So Flacco's just like, hey, not a problem. Tosses the remote off the couch, puts on a uniform, right? This is nothing. So that's pretty
Yeah.
amazing. That's pretty amazing what he's doing. But understand that Cleveland's a pass first team now. They're an aerial show. So guys like Amari Cooper and whatnot, rather than say Ford earlier on in the season, are going to be your guy, him and Njoku. So they're the ones who are going to be catching
Um,
passes and going to be benefiting from Joe Flacco's resurgence, and it is a resurgence. Now, the thing I
yeah.
will say though, the thing I
Talk-
will say
mm.
is that road Browns are the Brownies, right? So
Oh,
this
yeah.
game, I think they're playing Texas this weekend.
Mhm.
I'm gonna
You
put it out
think?
there right now. I'm gonna put it out there right
Yeah.
now that Cleveland's gonna lose that game for one, and that
Oh,
it's gonna
huh?
be high scoring, like 38-31 or some kind of crazy thing like that. I'm not sure if Stroud is back or not, but it doesn't really matter, right? Because Davis Mills knows how to put up the ball. I've started Davis Mills in fantasy in an emergency situation in a super flex 2 quarterback league that I used to play in, and so
Mm.
I'm familiar with Davis Mills. I've had to start him a couple times. And let me tell you, on both occasions, he balled out, put up like 4 touchdowns. So, like, the guy can throw. But again, he's like another one of these NFL starters that, he's good for like half a season at a time before he starts getting like sacked all the time and stuff like that. So he's a good backup. And yeah, I have a feeling that there's going to be a high offensive output in that game. I think that Houston gets the better of it. And
Mhm.
I think that, yeah, I think Flacco, he might have a prolific game, whatever. But I just think that Cleveland loses this weekend, which is going to further complicate the
Oh,
AFC North. It's going to make
oh
Cincinnati
man,
will be
it's gonna
tied.
get
Cincinnati will be tied with Cleveland, and it's just going to be a shit
it's
show.
gonna
But it's
get
awesome.
weird,
But it's
bro.
awesome, right? This is the
Yeah.
NFL. This is why the NFL is fun.
Man, we talked about this early, and people who were watching us from day one, they knew what it was. We talked about December football and
Yeah,
how crazy
dude.
tight it's gonna get. It's gonna be butthole tight. I'm not even lying to
There's
you, man. Slap a
there's
like,
three
man.
more weeks. There's 3 more weeks of football
3 more
left,
weeks left. Yep, yep.
right? Like
Not even five.
fantasy
Not
wraps up
like 2
next
weeks left.
weekend.
Yes,
But
it does. Championship game. Mhm.
but the week 18 is after, so there's 3 more games including this
Yep.
week. So like
Mm-hmm.
even though like nothing's sewn up yet, there's a lot of questions still to be answered. It's going to be
Bro,
awesome. It's going to be awesome. The NFL rocks.
man, that's why we love ball, man, and that's why we go hard every week to give y'all a show.
Yeah, man.
We're gonna run around the AFC the AFC North, man. We're gonna cover it all, bro. We're biased. We're Ravens fans and Steelers fans, man. We're gonna cover it all. So we gotta cover the most viral situation. Okay, actually, let's start
Oh
off.
yeah.
Let's talk about with the Ravens winning, the beating the Jags 23-7. It was a complete domination. Anytime the Jags got close to the, red zone, they got stopped by this great, Ravens defense. And me as a Ravens fan, I'm seeing a pattern here. We're not always run first. Unfortunately, Keaton Mitchell went out.
No, you're not.
That's tough. We're more of a pass first
You
offense.
are.
and it's
You're an
looking
aerial
great.
show right now.
It's an aerial show led by Lamar. You know what Lamar reminds me of now? He reminds me of early Russell Wilson. Remember when Russell Wilson used to
Yeah.
scramble a little bit in the pocket? He used to scramble for the pass, and then when there's a run, he would go for it. Now Lamar is doing that. Lamar's not scrambling to run; he's scrambling to pass. So, Unc, what do you think of the Ravens, number one seed in the AFC? We're going to talk a bit later about a possible game of the week. What do you think about Lamar and this offense, plus the Ravens defense beating the
I,
Jags next week, brother?
you know who he reminds me of, like from my past. When I think of Lamar, I
Talk to
think
me,
of
bro.
Randall Cunningham.
Oh, that
Yeah,
legend. Yep, yep.
especially Minnesota Randall Cunningham when he was
He
less
was
wild.
borderline MVP. I
When he
watched
was
that
when
team
he was
highlights.
less wild, he didn't run unless he had to. But when he did, he still had the old legs. But the guy could throw deep. The guy had it, yeah. Randall Cunningham. Now the other guy he reminds me of too in a way. I mean, he's not as big as Dante Culpepper, but Dante Culpepper, another Minnesota QB, was also like that, where he was always a threat to get 300 yards and 75 running, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, I think Lamar's a real threat, but what they need from him right now is his arm.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, his receivers are dwindling. It's a bit of a triage unit over there in the wide receiver
Mhm.
section of Baltimore's offense. So
Mhm.
but I think Baltimore is strong. I mean, people talk about this weekend's game being a Super Bowl preview, and I don't think that's hype. I think that's
I agree.
I,
I feel it too.
I think Baltimore is probably the best AFC team right now.
Yeah.
We'll find out. We'll see how consistent Miami really is over these next 3 games. Because Miami, I have to
Mhm.
say, like Miami's had a little up and down in them this year, even though they only have
Yeah.
one less loss than does Baltimore. But there's been some up and
Mhm.
down in Miami, like typical good old Miami. And remember, Miami's always prescribed to blow up in December and January, right? It's just sort of what
Oh.
it's just sort of what's happened to them over the years. So if Miami can kibosh that rep and really tighten
Mhm.
things up and batten down the hatches in December, January, I would probably give them the nod even, but just
Mhm.
simply on how healthy they are. But for the time being,
Yeah.
Baltimore's the number one team in the AFC, in my opinion.
Well said, man. I'm not going to disagree with that as a Baltimore fan. I do
Why
see
wouldn't
some
you,
issues.
right? Yeah.
I do see some flaws. I can't front. The
Yeah,
offense
they're not
isn't
perfect.
consistent. They're not perfect. The offense can't stall, and that's where you'll need the defense to rise up. Inconsistent in the passing game sometimes, but I'll say this: when they're on, they are on, brother. Like when
Mhm.
they start rolling, it's a hard avalanche to stop. And that's
Yeah.
why when we talk about in a little bit, when we talk about the game of the week, we're gonna get deeper into that, and we're gonna give you some analysis, some ideas, some things to think about while you're making your bets, or at least you're thinking about what you're doing in terms of fantasy on that level. But we got to talk about the most viral situation, and that involves, unfortunately, your team, Unk Football, Rashad Mendenhall, the infamous running back for the Steelers, who fumbled at the goal on the goal line, saying that black players and white players cannot play football instead of the Pro Bowl. I'm paraphrasing, by the way. Instead of the Pro Bowl, there should be all white team versus an
Yeah,
all black.
yeah.
And it's kind of funny because we got a black, nephew, and we got Unc, a white homie. You know what I mean? What did
Yeah.
you find viral? That ridiculous is, man. What
Yeah.
do you
Well,
as a Steelers?
again, this gets back to hot take culture, right? I mean, how do
Yeah.
you yeah, how do you penetrate all the noise out there, like just from a simple Twitter account? Well, send an incendiary tweet. That's what you do, right? Yeah, Rashad Mendenhall. I had to look him up again because it had been so long. But yeah, I
Yeah.
remember this guy now. I remember actually I had great hopes for the guy, that he was going to be like this smash mouth running back that Pittsburgh hadn't had in years when they drafted him out of Illinois. He didn't really
Yeah.
work out that way. He was out of the NFL, but after being traded to Arizona by the time he was 26, and he was
Yeah.
going to go off to be a writer because he was a big intellect and a big mind and all that type of stuff. Yeah, that's it. He when he retired, he said he was going off to be a writer, and he did. He helped. HBO, I think, had some type of drama that they had on, some series, some HBO football centric series that they had on,
Oh,
and he was
Ballers with the Rock. Ballers with the
yeah,
Rock.
yeah, in like 2014 or something like that. And he
A
was
good
he
show.
was a writer on that show. And in fact, there were a couple of
Oh,
episodes that apparently he had like a lot of input as to the content, like his stories from his own past, right? So
oh, sure.
so yeah, yeah. But that's the zenith of his writing since until this tweet. um, so yeah, Rashad Mendenhall. Now this concept, when I hear stuff like this,
Yeah.
like it reminds me of when like insecure white guys like talk about their race in hyperbolic
Yeah.
terms and whatnot. And they talk about how white people face racism and all this type of stuff while ignoring the much larger, I'm just going to call it like impossibility, basically, of
Yeah.
that scenario existing, right? Like you're exaggerating things. And this is what I think Rashad is guilty of, is actually like racial insecurity, right? Like
Yeah.
all you have
Yeah.
to
You can
do
call him
is
racist. Even that statement was
like,
racist in itself. The tweet, really. If you
yeah,
think
I'm
about
not even going to get into whether it's prejudiced or bigoted and all that type of stuff. I'm just going to sit there and point out the flaws in his logic
it. Yeah.
about how his own thinking diminishes him in a way that I would never do with words, right?
For sure.
We're talking about the NFL here. Okay, so obviously, like an all-star game between white and black people is going to draw from a huge pool because the NFL is 80%, like 80% of the
Black.
players are black,
Black. Yeah, it's a
right?
black, mostly
20
black
percent,
league. Yeah.
20 or 25% of them are white. So right
Yeah.
away, in any statistical analysis, when you draw from a tiny pool versus a large pool, it's going to be a mismatch,
It's
right?
gonna be a
So
mismatch. Period.
what I think Mendenhall is getting at, because he made a few comments about, I don't need to be
Mm.
told who's good, blah blah blah. What he was really kind of getting at is all the white voices in social media and media in general that talk about different players, et cetera, et cetera. So I really think that's the fly in his bonnet, right? Is that he
Mm.
feels that, and he's probably pissed off that Christian McCaffrey is the leading running back this year or something like
Oh
that.
yeah,
Like
he's an MVP
there's
candidate for real.
there's something that's triggering him
Mm.
to make this type of illogical comment, right? It should be enough for him to observe that 80% of the players in the NFL are black. He
Of
came up
course.
in the system. He knows the disparity. Because remember, right? Like black people and white people are not a 50-50 split in America. There's a huge disparity. Black people are
Yeah.
only 12% of the population. White people are
Yes.
about 55% of the population. By all
Yeah.
rights and facts, right? The NFL should be like 6 players to 1 in favor of
Yeah.
white people, just based on the statistics of the demography of the
If you go
country,
by the demography, yeah, 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 demographics
right?
of the U.S., yeah, you're right about that. Yo.
But despite that improbability, the situation is
Mm.
flipped on its head,
Yes,
right?
it is. Yo.
Is that not
Mm-hmm.
enough for you? Is that not enough, Rashad? Like,
Yo,
is that not enough? Like, is
you
that
were so
not
right
enough?
when you
Like,
were
like,
so right when you were talking about Rashad was triggered by something. To write
yeah,
something as ridiculous as that, you have to be triggered by something. And I looked through his Twitter. I looked at his replies to his tweets. People talking to him. They
it's not the
always
first
show him the
time.
fumble. They show him the fumble. They show him that fumble. People are always hating on him about that fumble in the Super Bowl. And he has always written kind of wild tweets or tweets that are like a little suspect and
Yeah,
weird. Like there's a
yeah.
question about his
Do you remember
overall
19?
well-being. He's a little weird. You know what I
Do
mean?
you
He's
remember
a little weird.
2019 when he
2019. What
automatically
happened? What happened?
2019. Yeah,
Mhm.
when Big Ben and Antonio Brown first started having their beef,
Yeah, having issues.
Rashad
Mm.
Mendenhall, shooting first and answering questions later, jumps right to Antonio Brown's defense, saying that
Ah,
Big Ben was obviously a racist and that should hardly even be a matter of question, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
wow.
And
Yeah.
he walked it all back for one, And then we saw the totality of who is Antonio Brown afterwards,
Over
right?
time, we realized what AB was. AB is not
No,
a, as talented as he is not a good person, man.
the
I'm gonna
whole
say that coming
situation
from me.
going on with Antonio
Yeah.
Brown and Ben and Big Ben, like it transcended racism. The
Oh
things you
man,
find
what
out
that
later.
thing?
Like
Yeah,
AB was just in a
just a
place where he
plain.
wasn't functioning well, and he hasn't
No,
recovered since.
no,
And that's
no. And
it.
you know what? Let me say this. The thing is, if you just look at just the plain, I like the memes, man. I like the memes. I like the jokes because it's such a ridiculous or stupid comment. I like the jokes of it. If you had an all-white team, the quarterbacking would be very good. Let me be real. The tight end play would be very good. You have Travis Kelsey. You know what I mean? The O line, D line would be pretty good. You have a guy like TJ Watt. But if you look at the core of it, Mendenhall is definitely pissed at something or somebody, or things got him triggered in order to put that angry tweet out there. I like the jokes. It's funny, but it also shows, man, some people you gotta leave them alone because they're going something, they're triggered about something. That hot
Yeah,
culture is leading people to say insane, unrational, borderline racist, prejudicial things. We don't
yeah.
do that. But I did like some of the funny memes regarding to it
Well,
because an all black team versus all white team. Would there be a white DB? Like I don't know. McCaffrey's the best running back in the league. It's
well,
like it's
okay. But
funny
the
to
thing
think
is,
about.
though, football
You
being what
say that.
football is, like you could probably find 12 white player or 11 whites or so CFL moment. You could find
Yeah,
11 players. You could find
mm,
11 players to start. Great. Right. And it'd probably be a
yeah.
good team, right? It would probably, the first quarter would be very competitive, right? But when you start subbing out, you start going down the bench, right?
There'll be a lot of depth on the
That
line.
white bench is getting there. It's getting real short. Yeah. So
Yeah,
obviously, like again, it's a statistical thing that should be
yeah.
satisfactory to Rashad Mendenhall.
I'll say this, man. It's funny. It's jokes. It's crazy, but that's football, man, and that's why we love talking about it. But let's talk about something that is really, really important, and it relates to both of us. It relates to both of us for real, for real. And that is fantasy football naughty or nice list. We are gladly telling you right now that me and Unc are
Yeah.
in the playoffs. I'm
Ah,
predicting that you and me will face each other in the finals. So this is low key our conversation to each other. Who is on the naughty or nice list for you, Unc, in terms of fantasy football? What things should people watch for as they're going into their playoff weekend, which is basically starting now? You know what I'm saying? With the Steelers playing in about an hour or so, less than an hour. What do you think on your naughty and nice list in terms of fantasy
well,
football?
the
Who
first
deserves
guy
some
on
praise
my
and respect?
the first guy on my nice list is Matthew Stafford, who I had to throw in with my fingers crossed Thursday night because T-Law, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, is he going to play again this week or not? We're not sure. He's traveling with the team though, so likelihood is he's going to play. But you know what? I didn't feel two ways about throwing him in there. Right, Stafford's been like a phoenix the second half of this season. He's really rising up,
Two
and
cards.
yeah, like
Same.
LA is starting to look like one of those teams you don't want to play in the playoffs, right? And so yeah, Stafford definitely on my nice list. The other one making my nice list is Trey McBride. I think he's a rookie
The
tight
tight
end
end
in
for
Arizona.
Kansas.
Oh,
Arizona, my bad.
dude,
Sorry. Yep.
that
Yep.
guy's been the number one wide receiver in fantasy the second half of the season. That guy is just putting up Celts numbers. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's definitely on. It's like the only bright shining light in Arizona, and I'm happy to have him on my team. I picked him up on waivers about 3 weeks ago because
Nice.
I
I
was
picked him up in my other league. Yeah, I watched it. You played.
yeah, like because Waller's been injured all season long, and so I was rocking with Cole Kmet for a while, which is again it's sturdy, right? But I was just
Yeah.
like, the offensive output, etc. Well, in Arizona, right? I mean, McBride's the only game in town really when it comes to functioning receivers and stuff. So that's great for fantasy owners, right there. Other guys on the nice list definitely include Browning in Cleveland. So I mean, if you've had
Take him.
quarterback problems, right? There's a
Mm-hmm.
guy, right? Pick him up off the waiver
Mm-hmm.
wire, and he's done fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Also, too, Chuba Hubbard is rounding into looking like you know a top five quarterback. Now he's in Carolina, right? So a lot of the only reason I mention him is because he
He's a
is in
running back, right?
Carolina.
Carolina
Chuba
running back.
Hubbard
Chuck
is
Hubbard. Yes, yeah,
the running
he's
back in
running back.
Cleveland.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or not Cleveland, Carolina. Ordinarily, you'd
Carolina.
never mention them because they're so terrible. But Chuba Hubbard is again. You talk about the one bright shining light on a team. Chuba Hubbard
Right.
is looking like a top five running back probably this weekend as well too. So you got to
Ooh.
like that. Yeah. Now I got a couple others here I had pointed out here for fantasy purposes.
Mm-hmm. Do you have anybody
Yeah.
on that naughty list? Maybe might have to bench somebody, a player
Yeah.
who's unexpected bench. I don't know.
The biggest question I have, and we talked about him last week, is Calvin Ridley. Will Calvin Ridley? He's going to get a ton of targets, no matter who's playing, whether it's C.J. Beathard or Lawrence. The question
Yeah.
is, can he catch them all? Can he haul them all in? Now, Ridley has a lights out matchup against Tampa Bay, who they're a pass funnel. They can't stop anything. But the question is,
Mm,
can Ridley convert? Up until this point, it's been so maddening. Like, how can you have a ceiling of 27 points and a floor of literally zero? the guy, the guy has 3 or 4 games at least with 5 points or less,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
just as many points with 20 points or more. So Calvin Ridley is a real question mark, and I'm just grateful that I've got some
You
large
got
S at wide receiver.
reinforcements. Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, because
It was also like that with me, Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis off Buffalo. He's had a lot of zero games, and sometimes he'll have like a 20-point game.
he's
I'm like, I don't
another
know.
good he is another good example of someone who's on your naughty and nice list, depending week to week,
Yeah,
right?
man.
So
I got a
yeah,
question for you, just before you continue. Is Jalen Hurts, could we put him on a naughty list or a nice list? I don't know, because I have him on my other league. Should I even
yeah.
start him or should I just get Browning? I don't know. Oh, what do you think, man?
Let's see here. I mean, I would definitely start Hurts, right? And he's still going to be a top 12 quarterback, right? So, I mean, that's ultimately what you're looking for. But I don't see Hurts blowing up the way he used to. I mean, he's still getting those running
Yeah.
touchdowns, but he's also fumbling. He's also like putting up intercepts. He's had more turnovers this season than he has in the past. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, Jalen Hurts is absolutely a viable fantasy quarterback.
Got you. I just
Yeah,
was
man.
not so sure because he's been having bad performances. They play the Giants, so hopefully
Yeah,
that's good. I don't know. Well, fingers crossed.
yeah. No,
See you in the
it's wet end of the season December rivalry weekend in the Northeast, right? That game actually, I consider that game intriguing, right? I'm assuming
Could be.
DeVito's going to come. I'm assuming DeVito's going to come in inspired. Yeah, exactly, right. They're playing those Philly Goombas, right? So
Yes.
yeah, no, I'm expecting that game actually to be closer than they're calling. I'm actually calling for the Giants to cover that 13.5 points, but
Oh.
I assume that Jalen Hurts is going to get his.
Okay. And that leads us to talking about lines and spreads for this week, brother. Was there anything I missed from fantasy, or we good on the fantasy talks, brother?
Yeah, no,
Offense
we're
and
good on fantasy. There actually are
mm,
not that many games that are going to be like lights out for points this week. There's only, I think,
got
3 games that are supposed to be over 45, 48 points, that type of thing. And so that's, of course, the Dallas game,
mm,
the Buffalo Chargers game, and there's one more
yeah.
that's a little eluding me at this. The San Francisco game. So
Okay.
yeah, and all of those have the risk of degenerating into 40 plus games, defensive struggles, 24, 22, that type of thing, right? So
Mhm.
ordinarily, that's what drives fantasy is production, overall team production. But I
Yeah.
do think that there will be more points scored in those 4 games than there will be some of the others. The Houston, Cleveland
Yeah.
actually will probably produce a lot of points too. So other than that, my naughty nights list, as I mentioned, and as usual, if your team has players playing in games that are going to be shootouts, get them out there regardless. Don't even
Bring them
question
out
it.
for the show. So in terms of lines and spreads, so we should watch out for that. You've alluded to it a lot, man. That Browns and Texans game. You think it's going to
Yeah,
be a points bonanza. So if you have players on those teams, you would start them if you had a chance, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Like if you've got Amari Cooper, for example, or Njoku, or Flacco, like yeah, you definitely get those guys out there. If you've got
Mm-hmm.
Singletary in Texas's backfield, get him out there.
Nice.
Nico Collins is back this week, so both him and Noah
Uh,
Brown will be
oh,
viable. And yeah,
okay.
either Mills or Stroud, either one of them is going to put that ball in the air.
What do you think about lines and spreads for this week, especially because I'm looking at right now, man. I'm looking at the Vikings and Lions. I might want to have some action on that. They're saying over under 47 and a half. And I'm like, damn, they got the Lions 3 point field goal favorites, but you know what I mean? How's it looking, man? How's it looking for the lines and spreads and some of your games on your list, man?
Well,
Mm,
I did a deep dive into the lines this week just because I
I
was
like
curious
that.
about
Yeah.
something. Yeah, out of intellectual
Mm,
curiosity,
mm,
being as the season as mature as it is right now, like there really is a lot of data out there on how teams are supposed to perform and whatnot. So I kind of did a
mm,
thing this week where I did a full points for, points against, ATS, all that type of stuff, putting it all into sort of one big sort of algorithm.
mm,
Although algorithm makes it sound much more complicated than it was. It really wasn't that complicated. Let's take a look at that Cleveland Houston game just to start off, seeing as how we were talking about that one. That one, when I
okay.
looked at it earlier in the week, Houston was a 2.5 point favorite at home against Cleveland with an over
Mm,
under of 40. So Cleveland's points for, points against Houston is they're almost identical, to be quite honest with you. And
mm,
the way I look at it, with the home field advantage, Houston comes out and should be favored by about
mm,
2 points, 2.3 points. So to have
okay.
them as a 2.5 point underdog against Cleveland, like to me, that actually stands out. So I would actually take Houston to
Mm,
cover that at home,
oh,
and definitely take the over. So yeah, no, I think Cleveland's going down this weekend.
I like that. I like
The
that. Yeah,
return of
they're
the
not good on the
Brownies.
they're not good on the road. You're right about that.
No,
They're
they're
very bad
not.
on good at home. You know what I mean?
They're a different
Mm-hmm.
team at home,
Yes, sir.
like
How about any
Dallas.
other matches? Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Dallas is a different team on the road. It's almost mental. The
Yep.
Dallas Cowboys have to pray for home games in the playoffs, or they're going to have a very quick end to their season. And
Well,
Jerry Jones
they
will be pissed.
they
Mhm.
dispelled that notion briefly when they won in Philly. But again, now we're asking ourselves, is Philly that bad, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Any other lines and spreads we should watch out for? That's your game. It's your locked in.
Gee, sure. Like I said, I covered them all. Like, ask me a game, and I'll tell you what it looks like.
Let's look at the let's you know what's interesting to me, man? Let's look at the Dallas versus Dolphins, man. Let me
Yeah,
get
that's a
your
good game to look at.
I think that's gonna be a great game to watch too. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's gonna be fun. Now, let me
Mm-hmm.
find that. Okay, here we have it right here. All right, Dallas, Miami. Okay, well, looking at that game there, well, Dallas and Miami again. Um, like
Mm-hmm.
like Dallas has what is it? Like they're like almost 12 points to the good on the points for and points against. But Miami,
Mm-hmm.
surprisingly, is 10.5 points
Oh,
plus to the good.
okay.
Yeah. Miami scores. Miami is the only team in the NFL that puts up
Mm-hmm.
numbers like Dallas. Right? They score
Oh,
31.5 points a game.
okay.
31.5 points a game. Dallas puts up almost 31 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
And now Miami's defense is a little softer. They give up 21 points a game, but not recently. Not in recent times, they haven't. Like I said, Miami's defense has morphed into a top five outfit. At the same time, Dallas is showing some weakness against the run. Yeah. So the way
Mm-hmm.
I look at it, putting all the numbers through, right? Miami, like I said, is favored by 1.5 at home. According
Mm-hmm.
to me, Miami is about half a point better than Dallas on just the points for, points against. And then, pardon me, when you throw in the home field advantage, I should say, they come out about
Mm-hmm.
half a point better, in my opinion, than does Dallas.
Mhm.
So like it's kind of a pick 'em game, really, but I'm
Yeah,
not
it's pretty
buying
much.
that.
They're giving a point and a half to
Yeah,
both teams.
which is basically the home field advantage, right?
Yes, that's
So
exactly
it's
right.
basically a pick 'em in my mind, but I'm not buying that. I think Dallas goes down again.
You think Dallas goes down 2 losses in a row?
Yep,
Damn.
and
You gotta
and
like
take
it. You got
and,
Dallas Cowboy fans. Better watch
yeah.
out.
Yeah, and take the over. I'm sure they'll crush the over. It's 50 points. It's
Yeah.
like that kind of
We got
belies my own argument about the defenses, but I still think in the end, it's going to be over 50 points for the over under. Yep.
Well, let's cover two things before we close this out and you get ready to tailgate for the Steelers games. How's the Steelers and Bengals looking for the spread, man? How's the spread looking for that? They're
Steelers,
giving the
Cincinnati.
Bengals. Oh, sorry, yeah, Steelers Cincinnati. Yeah, yeah, Steelers Cincinnati. How's that looking from your analysis, brother? How is it looking? They're giving a field goal, 3 points. You know what I mean on the spread to the
Yeah.
bet
Well,
over under
yeah,
38.5. So they're saying it's going to be tight, kind of tight. All right.
yeah. They're saying it's going to be another AFC North black and blue kind of game, is what they're saying. 38.5 points and a 3-point spread. That's your
Yeah.
basic. That's your basic AFC
That's a
North
field
game
goal.
every
Yeah.
weekend. Now Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh is like a 2 3 point. I think it's up to 3 points now. 3 point
Yeah.
underdog and deservedly so. My
Yeah.
analysis on all that says that Cincinnati's about a 1 point favorite, even with the home point advantage worked in Pittsburgh's favor, just based on the points for, points against, and all that good stuff. Also, too, given the fact that the Bengals are surging right now,
Yeah.
all my heart says, of course, always Pittsburgh, right? Pittsburgh's fighting for that 9-8 season and all that type of good stuff. But Cincinnati,
Mm,
if I'm putting a mortgage payment on it, I would definitely I would take Cincinnati in that contest,
yeah.
and I would probably take the over just because Cincinnati's going to
Okay.
probably put up at least 25 points. I get, you know,
Yeah.
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 So
It
yeah,
could be
yeah.
interesting. I feel
It's
for you, I feel for you, bro. Oh man.
don't feel for me. Don't cry for me, Argentina. I'll be all right. Pittsburgh will be all right.
They're gonna be all right, man. And we're gonna talk about the game of the week, brother. I'm gonna talk about this. We're talking about, at least in my point of view, potentially a Super Bowl preview. Baltimore
Yeah,
Ravens
exciting
taking on
game.
talking. I'm very excited to watch this. Over my Christmas meals, man, it's gonna be game of the week for me, man. How is the spreads looking like, man? Talk to the people. What is your analysis of this game? They're giving 5.5 to San Fran. So they're saying
Is
basically
it up to five and a
like,
half?
it's up to 5.5, and they're saying the over under is 47.5. So they expect a shootout, and they expect
Yeah.
San Fran to get it by a touch, almost a touchdown, pretty much.
Wow. So that spread keeps growing, huh?
Keeps
Yeah.
it's growing.
Apparently that spread has been locker room material in Baltimore this week. They feel disrespected. Yeah, they feel like it should be 3 points or less. Well, let's take a look and see what the numbers say. According to me, Baltimore and Cincinnati, they both have very favorable points for and points against. So two very solid defenses, two very prolific offenses. Uh, Baltimore puts out at about 27.5 points a game. San Francisco's about 30 points a game. You can score
Mhm.
about 16, almost 17 points a week on San Francisco, but only 16 points a week against Baltimore. Surprise, surprise, right?
Mhm.
So even with the home field advantage put in and the points for and points against factored in, San Francisco with that home field advantage looks like they should be about 4.4 points better than Baltimore. Well, that's within five
Mhm.
points, isn't it? So
Yes, it is.
yeah, I've actually got Baltimore ticked as the favorite in that game with the over,
Oh,
right?
oh,
Just based on that formula. But better shouldn't
wow.
trust that formula. This is just an intellectual exercise. My actual gut pick for the game is San Francisco as the home team. Are you kidding me?
I
um,
know. Oh,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
we'll
you're right.
find out whether the heart is correct or whether the gut is correct.
We're
The
gonna find
the
out
brain or
about
the heart.
we're gonna find out a lot about these two teams after
Oh
this
man.
contest, man. Because this is gonna set.
Apparently,
It's gonna line up the playoffs, man. Yo.
apparently this is a rare occurrence too. The last time you
Oh,
had two
oh,
teams,
mm,
this two high-ranking teams, the two top teams in the NFL, play together against each other this late in the season. The last time it happened apparently was in the 1980s. So
wow.
this is not a frequent occurrence. So NFL football fans, get out there, man. Watch this game. This is an epic game. And it looks to me like it's going to be very close, but I think San Francisco prevails.
Yeah, I think you know what, me, I'm gonna go in my heart. You know me, man, especially when it
You
comes to
got
my
to.
team.
You can't cheer
I
against
gotta go
Baltimore.
my
You
heart.
can't even pick against Baltimore.
I can't even be part of this pick up a line spread
Dude,
because
you
I'm going my
know,
heart. Baltimore Ravens. It will be a Christmas gift. So Santa Claus,
yeah,
the
that's the
elves,
way you
Santa
got to look
Claus,
at it.
the elves. I'm
Dude, do
wishing
you
for
realize
a standing of the Ravens beating the best team in football, the Niners, clearing them out. Talk to
Do
me.
you realize in all my years of being in picks pools for money, and just the occasional bet that I make, because I don't bet very much, whatever, I have
Yeah, you know.
never, ever, ever bet in a formal situation against Pittsburgh. You know why?
Oh,
You
interesting.
know
Talk to me.
why? Because I
Talk to
never want to be in that situation where I'm
me.
actually cheering against my team for money or for a fantasy win or something like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because
Well,
anytime I sit down to watch my team, I want to know in my heart of hearts that I'm cheering all out for my team. I don't want to have money, fame, or glory.
you don't want to be on that side where you're cheering
I, I,
against
I
your team,
just
right?
want to cheer for my
And then
Steelers
boom, and
in
then
full
boom,
throat. Yeah, so
you
you
know what I
can't
mean? Yeah,
You can never
yeah.
pick against Baltimore, dude. You can't do it.
I don't think I've you know what's crazy? I'm thinking about it right now. I've never made a bet against my Ravens
Yeah.
either.
Yeah. Why
Either
test
I
it?
don't bet on them, either I don't bet on them, period, or I bet for them. If I'm not gonna, if
Right.
you
Right.
I'm not gonna bet for the other team to beat my team.
Can you
No,
imagine? Can you
no,
imagine like this weekend? Like, say I put a bet on Cincinnati, and here's
yeah,
Pittsburgh charging down the field like for the win, and I'm cheering
yes,
against them. Like, how fucked up would that be?
that would be super fucked up. That's like
Right.
you going against your team just to make some money. That's like,
But it's a big bet, like 10 grand or something like that. Like, can you imagine how
wow.
morally compromised you'd feel?
Oh my god, bro. And you know what? This man. This I'll say this. This is me and Unc's Christmas message to y'all. Whenever y'all bet, don't bet against your team. And if you don't feel confident about your team, keep your money in your wallet. Go buy some
Bingo. Exactly.
go donate to some charities, man. It's that time of giving. That's where you use your money. Do not bet against your team. That's Unc and nephew's football advice to y'all, or just life advice. You feel me?
Me-
Christmas
Merry,
advice.
Merry Christmas and keep those ducats in your pocket.
Yeah, keep that money, man. And you know what? For overtime, what's a good Christmas or Christmas memory you have? You know what I mean? Like, of course, it can get expensive. I can start off with mine, man. I've had so many good Christmas experiences, related to football. It's like, bruh. Usually, there's Christmas basketball games, which are really entertaining, right?
Hmm.
But for me, I remember there was a Christmas game. I think it was Brady versus Peyton Manning. Must have been years ago when he was in Indy, and there was balling shooting out. It was basically a shootout, and I always like those big time matchups. Colts versus Pats. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Steelers.
sure.
I don't think there was a Steelers versus Raven Christmas game. I'm not 100% sure there was one, but
Yeah.
I love watching big teams play each other on Christmas. And man, I'm gonna be eating all types of candy. I'm gonna have spiked Baileys. You know what I mean? I'm gonna have spiked coffee. I'm gonna be sipping away while enjoying my Christmas, man. Any Christmas memories you have as somebody who's watching football or sports, man?
Well,
And you have in mind.
actually, this phenomenon where we're starting to get Christmas Day games is very recent. When I was growing up,
Mhm.
football and Christmas, like they didn't mix at all. That's how the NBA became as prominent as they have become on Christmas days because there simply was no football to be had at all. Usually, I mean, even like in bowl season, like for the college ball, you had to wait till the 26th to get another football game. Yeah. So, yeah, Christmas Day was always a bit of a dry spell as far as football is concerned. So I don't actually have a large memory bank of that. One exception to that was probably grade 13 or first year at university. For some
Okay.
reason, the Steelers were playing like a wild card game, I think, against Denver.
Oh.
And I was back home visiting the folks and all that stuff. And I was hanging out with a good friend of mine from high school, and we'd had like way too many beers. And I just remember stumbling across this football field at my old high school, trying to get
Yeah.
back to my basement to watch that game. Right, I'd left like a family dinner party on stuff because I was like, Steelers are playing, man, and it was like I think it was a wild card game. And that's why
Nice.
it was so close to Christmas. Is there was no getting around it or something like that. And
Nice.
yeah. So that was a fun memory because, of course, we went back. That was like the Mark Malone, I think, era in the Steelers. It
That
was
was nice.
yeah.
Nice.
Well, he was quarterback, right? I mean, like, so this was like 83 or 4 or 5, maybe something like that. So yeah. So that's like one
No,
of my only memories of Christmas and football. Yeah.
Unc is a triple OG, man. He all the way back to the early '80s with it, with his football knowledge, man. And we gonna do this. We gonna let Unc enjoy his football game. Bengals versus Steelers. We gonna
Yeah.
let y'all enjoy
Kickoff.
the rest of your weekend. The kickoff is about to go.
I think
I'm
I
gonna
missed the
go back to
kickoff
the
right
North.
now.
I'm gonna go back to the North Pole to deal with Santa. Make sure everybody get their gifts.
Right.
It's
Keep
been
my
Unc
players
and
on his nice list.
I'm gonna keep y'all players on the nice list, not the naughty list. It's been Unc
That's
and
it.
nephew, man. Have Merry Christmas to y'all. Happy New Year's, man. And we'll tap in
Yes,
with y'all. Deuces.
exactly. Merry
Yes, sir.
Christmas to all the folks out there. One love. May the blessings be yours this year.
Let's get it. Appreciate y'all. One.